Congressman Chris Murphy recently hosted a panel discussion with Carol Browner, Assistant to the President for Energy and Climate Change at the Hill-stead Museum in Farmington. The panel focused on the promise that green energy advancements hold for our environment and for Connecticut's economy. Joining Browner and Murphy were representatives from Connecticut-based renewable energy businesses, including Apollo Solar, FuelCell Energy, Duracell, and Optiwind. Here's what they had to say.
The difficulty with that kind of concept in the past is that you couldn't hoard that energy. You couldn't put it in a tank and arbitrage the price to go up. You couldn't trade it on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And so the classic businesses of the last century or so had a hard time getting their hands around it. Free energy just needs some equipment to harness it. Important. Other countries are way ahead of the United States. The country of Germany puts in 10 times more solar power every year than the United States. You can see from the colorful map on the poster, the United States has more solar power in every state than the country of Germany has. Germany is the size of Montana, the latitude of Calgary, Alberta, and has less sunshine than Seattle. And yet they're the world's leader in producing solar power. What's wrong with this picture? The Department of Energy has some really bright people. And working at Sandia Labs in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they've jumped way ahead of where we're stuck today. And they're saying once everyone has electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, where are you going to get the electricity? Is it going to come from the coal plant of the next town? No, the equipment that we're contracted to develop is a smart grid inverter that takes solar power from your roof, stores it in batteries in your garage, and when you come home at night, you plug in your car, and you take the solar energy that you've stored and use it to power your car. So it is totally clean energy, and it's the smart grid that allows that to happen.
Years ago when I started, there were about 24 employees. Today, we've got over 500. Almost all of those in the state of Connecticut. So we're an example of what can be done with a new renewable type technology and how it does have an impact of jobs, and we'd like to see that continue. We at FuelCell Energy really like Sierra Nevada beer because they are a very, very good example of what we can do. Okay, they are at the end of a radial feeder, that transmission system that doesn't have all the qualities we'd like it to have. And they're in Chico, California, and all of their beer is made in that factory. It's not. Fortunately, they had interruptible power there, or the power, they were going through brownouts and things like that, and it was affecting their production. So they wanted to solve that problem. And their solution to that problem was to put a megawatt worth of our fuel cells on that site so that they could generate their own power. And they fueled it off natural gas because that was what was available. Fortunately, for us in this example, they didn't stop there. In the end of the brewery process, their leftover biosolids, the hops and things that are left over, they were taking it out in the field and using it as a fertilizer. Okay, so instead, what they did is they put in something called an anaerobic digester, where they put it in a big tank and they use it to make methane and CO2, which today is the fuel for half of the power that they generate from those natural gas fuel cells.
People know us as the global leader in copper top batteries, but we also have a number of other products that are that we sell, including backup generators. We sell cell phone battery chargers. We sell flash memory, believe it or not. So a lot of areas, and we're in a transformation as a division of Procter & Gamble to go from being an alkaline battery company to be a personal power company. And by having that vision, working with partners such as these folks here on the panel, allow us to contribute to a better environment as well.
The world. We are still only about 1 to 1.5% of our total electricity generation coming from wind energy. So that's almost all coming from that large end of the market. And that end of the market last year, in 2008, produced 35,000 new jobs as the rest of the economy was heading in the opposite direction. So great story there. If you look at the other side of the market, it's small residential wind turbines. A lot of entrepreneurship there, a lot of interesting new technologies, a lot of growth as well, but a much smaller market, and one where the economics are a little bit more challenging to get a return on an individual homeowner's investment. So as we look at that, though, we saw a large hole in the middle of the market. Where was the wind turbine technology for the school, for the manufacturing facility, for the museum, for the hospital. Lots of people who were spending $50,000 to $500,000 worth of, on electricity every year were not able to participate in wind energy. They had some good options in solar, and we think that we're a good complement to that. So that's the area of the market that we're focused on, is that commercial middle of the market. And it wasn't as simple as simply taking big technologies and making them smaller to fit into the footprint in one of those locations, but in sort of using some of our friends from Procter & Gamble's methodologies, you look at what that customer really needs. They need something which is smaller and shorter and more compact because it has to fit next to a school ballpark. You have to have something that is fundamentally quieter. You have to have something that is quick and easy to install, something that's inexpensive to service and has to be done infrequently. So the solution that we came up with is a fundamentally different looking wind turbine. And the idea that really drives us as well is one of wind acceleration. We all tend to live and work in areas which aren't quite as windy as you might find in the wind farm states out in the Great Plains. We tend to work in what in the wind industry we refer to as Class 2 wind or Class 1 wind. We're sitting here today in Class 1 wind, and in Connecticut we have a number of pockets, hundreds of pockets of good Class 2 wind, but conventional wind turbine technologies are not well suited to Class 2 wind. So what we decided to do is, because we want to site them next to schools and factories where we all live and our children go to school, we need to find a way to make our turbines and our technology work effectively in Class 2 wind, in lower wind speed areas. So you can see by our design, we have essentially a silo that takes the wind and accelerates the wind around the side. And so higher density wind is hitting our turbines at a greater wind speed, producing more power, making it more economically viable. So a new technology for a new market, which is untapped in the wind industry today. We're starting here in Connecticut. We have just finished last week putting the foundations on our first turbine up in Torrington. Anyone's welcome to visit, on a dairy farm. And we hope to have a few more put in next year and then fully commercialize and launch first in the Northeast and then the rest of the U.S. and the world after that, starting in 2011.